Welcome to episode 7 of the Women's Hurling podcast, brought to you once again by Bourke Sports. For all your gear needs, www.bourkesports.ie or norma.clancy@bourkesports.ie. Sarah, you've gone rogue on us this evening. We will not be mentioning that brand. It's bad enough that Woods has had a shocker in the Masters as we're recording this without you bringing the brand as well. Fiona's rocking it, so that's okay. Davey, you had a fine win yesterday. Is it true that the kit man forgot the sports drinks and Tony Kelly stood up in the dressing room at half time, his hand over a barrel of water, and there was Powerade? Is there any truth in that at all?
No commentator. Too early. I'll talk to you at the end of the championship, don't worry.
Class performance, you're going well. Results of the weekend. So, Senior Championship, Cork 315, Clare 8 points, Tipperary 112, Waterford 10 points. In the Nancy Murray Cup final, the first silverware of the year for Cavan, they had a 2-14-1-3 win over Tyrone in Inniskeen. In the intermediate semi-finals, Kerry were home and hosed in the quarter-final with a quarter of an hour to go, got pegged back by Laois. Laois won 110-16 in extra time, and Meath beat Derry 113-8 points. So where that leaves us heading into the semi-final stages of all three competitions, we're down to Galway versus Tip and Kilkenny versus Cork after that draw in the senior. Shout out to the LGFA. They've avoided the clash with Cork, which is great to see. I know we can be negative enough about that kind of thing at times, so fair play to everyone involved there. This intermediate semi-finals, Antrim against Laois and Down against Meath. We've avoided a repeat of last week's fixtures, so obviously there might be someone out there listening that adjusted that, so fair play to you. And in the junior, we have the two Nancy Murray finalists stepping up. It's Armagh against Tyrone and Roscommon against Cavan, and we'll talk about all of that later. So we've plenty to be talking about, so we'll start with the first big game of the day down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, which was Cork against Clare. We were there, Fiona. We were well looked after. It was a nice, safe environment. There was no tea and coffee there, which is obviously a COVID restriction, but you came to the rescue. So it came to the rescue like a saviour, in with a roll and coffee, so fair play to you. But we'll start talking about the game. I suppose, Fiona, Clare were very competitive for 45 minutes this game.
Yeah, they really were, and it was great to see. I think we were saying that if the pitch was probably not like the beautiful AstroTurf it was just in such good condition, and we thought that kind of could have hampered Clare's performance in a way that if they had kind of a worse pitch or a slower pitch, sorry JV, and it would have helped Clare a lot, but Cork were just Cork were just well drilled, and they were slick, and they really rose to the game, I suppose, and the quickness of that pitch and the good ground really suited them.
Yeah, the pitch was class. Like, it hardly knocked a tap out of it. And funny enough, I saw a few highlights of your game, Davey, and the sideline in Portlaoise was ploughed up. And even in Thurles today for the Munster final, it looked kind of heavy at times. There was people sliding over the place. Literally, and there was some rain down in Cork all day. Not a tap did it knock out of the pitch. It is actually phenomenal. But you're right, it probably did help Cork because they were just that bit slicker. I suppose the Clare defence was absolutely superb for the first half. The full back line we've talked about before. It's one of the top full back lines in the game. Ciara Grogan, Claire Hare, and Ciara Doyle. Alana Ryan was excellent throughout for them. And Emer Kelly led the attack well. Like, Clare clearly had a game plan. They kept their back six intact, and they were very compact, and it kept it very tight in the first half. But Davey, we talked about this last week, that if Clare were going to keep it compact, they were going to have a game plan to counteract Orla Cronin's style of play. And obviously they didn't.
That's the thing, and like we talked about it. So obviously the Clare management aren't listening to our podcast, but that's the way Clare set up. They set up solid in the back, deep, but that leaves a centre forward to go roaming and cause trouble. And that's what Orla did. Like, I think Orla had 19 possessions, and for everything, she was a central figure for everything Cork did well, and everything got played through her, through that centre forward position, moving left and right. Giving like the Galway game, she was given a license to go where she wanted, and which caused most problems for Clare. Yeah,
definitely. And like, I suppose we talked about this, Fiona, maybe about 10 minutes into the second half. Clare were well drilled, well organised, and had a clear game plan, which is what you'd expect out of any team. But we're not sure was it the right game plan. So they got the ball to the middle third and tried to play a nice ball into the forwards, but they ended up with a full forward line of Mairead Scanlon, Anya Loughlin and Chloe Morey, and they just got absolutely cleaned out. They got cleaned out because the ball was being played into the corner. Laura Tracy had an absolute field day. Maeve Cahalan, Libby Coppinger, they absolutely roasted them. So I wonder, would Clare have been better off? I think you might have mentioned it halfway through the second half, going a bit more direct with a big physical full forward line like that.
Yeah, definitely. They just didn't have the pace to deal with Cork's pacey full back line. Like, those are three fine camogie players we called out there, but as we said, they wouldn't be as mobile, I suppose, as Cork's full back line, who were just very flighty, very fit. They were out first every ball. So yeah, maybe a more direct style probably could have suited them.
Definitely. I suppose in previous games they have put Emer Kelly into the full forward line, but I suppose they suffer from that old problem when you have a really good player out the field. If you put him in, who's going to hit the ball into her? And yeah, so I suppose they couldn't afford to lose that. Dave, you mentioned Orla Cronin there. Like, this game for me was about 4 players. Like, Cronin was phenomenal. She's in player of the year kind of form. Just like 19 possessions is absolutely off the charts. She scored 2 points, laid on 2 points, hit all her frees. Solid performance. Katrina Mackey was brilliant. I suppose in the previous games that we've seen, Sarah and Fiona in particular, you've seen a lot of Cork. They've been heavily reliant on Amy O'Connor and Linda Collins, and now they had, and obviously Orla Cronin. Now they had Katrina Mackey really looking like the old Katrina Mackey and had a phenomenal game. We thought Linda Collins was kind of quiet enough, Fiona, until we kind of totted it up at the end. And she laid on 5 points, 1 from play and 4 assists. So on a quiet day to contribute like that is serious going. But I suppose that's Linda's style. She just goes about her job, wins a lot of possession, lays it off. Amy O'Connor was just absolutely outstanding. Like,
her jinx left and right or something else. Like, she could give, I think we talked forward, what about Dean Rock giving lessons and retaking. I think Amy O'Connor could give lessons and jinking left and right. It's unbelievable at some scale. And sure, once she gets away from a player, I don't think there's any player in the whole championship that could catch her when she's on a run like that. And I said it as well yesterday. It's like, it's so surprising to see a player who's so quick, so fast, so athletic, but then to have such good hurling on top of it all. Like, she really is the whole package, like, you know.
Yeah, and like, Ciara Grogan probably held her for a long period of game yesterday, and she still contributed 3-3. I was talking to Donal O'Rourke on Friday evening, and he was telling me a story about Sergio Ramos marking Messi. And Ramos said, like, you know, every time Messi gets the ball, he's going to turn left and go. But every time he gets the ball, he turns left and go, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's what Amy O'Connor is like. It's like, every time you get the ball, you know she's going to jink, and you know she's going to go. But what do you do about it? Like, if she gets out in front, you're done. That's it. Like, you know, there's no two ways about it. And look, phenomenal performance. So, look, yeah, top class from Cork in the finish. They just, as in all their games so far, they finished really, really strong. Apart maybe from the Galway game. I suppose if we're looking at all-stars, Fiona, who stood out for you?
And again, sure, Amy, definitely, like, just give it to her at this stage, like, you know, unbelievable. Definitely up there for player of the year. Like, you know, she's really, really, no matter what happens Cork in the next match, I think she'd be right up there. Like, she's been really, really, without Amy O'Connor, Cork, I'm not sure they'd be where they are at the moment, like, you know. And who else I think was good? I suppose we talked about Orla, amazing, like, a lot of the stuff went through her. We also spoke about Aisling Thompson, who, like, for Aisling, we thought appeared at stages possibly 1 or 2 little kind of uncharacteristic mistakes, but God, she was pulling the strings at times there. She was delivering perfect passes straight to hand, and she actually did an awful lot. She played a nice little, she was kind of deep for a lot of it. Again, like we talked about Cork's kind of hampered performance in that they're possibly over drilled in that there's so much hand passing going on. It's like as if they're being restricted in what they want to do themselves. But look, when you're winning games 3-15 to 8 points, there's nothing really wrong with it. I just don't think they're the most exciting to watch at the moment. But yeah, Amy O'Connor, Aisling Thompson, Orla Cronin, and I think obviously Katrina Mackey there at the match as well. Unbelievable, so accurate. And
definitely top class. And I suppose for me to add to that, I thought Laura Tracy was unbelievable again.
she was very good, yeah.
Like, when they played it down the channel, she was out in front. When they played it in high, she just dogged them out of it. Like, top class. Maeve Cahallam's excellent. I think we both commented on Amy Lee as well, that she's really, I suppose, grown into the role now that she's been given the run of games as well. She was so composed, picked out her puck out so well, just a really...
spoke so well to her full back line. Like, she was out at the edge of the square a lot for a lot of the match. I thought Cork had an extra player there in the full back line. At some stage she was right beside the full back line and, you know, encouraging them. I think she's picked up a good few pointers from Aoife Murray in the talking side of things anyway, let alone the unbelievable, her puck outs were excellent. Yeah, like, I think there's 5 there from Cork now, like, so for a kind of a boring team, they still have a lot going on for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd love to have a boring team to coach that scored.
I know. Yeah.
But interesting point actually. Why is it still that the goalie wears the same colour jersey in goalie?
I don't know. Why are we still wearing it?
I don't know. It's like I've asked for the third secret of Fatima there.
Yeah.
But could you ask the same question? Why doesn't the men's hurling goalkeeper wear the same colour as the outfield team? Like, why?
I think
It's something to do with challenging the goalie or something, isn't it? Or there is some rule about it.
Is there?
I think in Gaelic football, the reason it was changed was because the goalie used to be allowed to pick the ball off the ground inside the small square. So the referee had to be able to see who could do it. But I don't know what the reason is for hurling.
Right.
And obviously in soccer, he's the one who can catch the ball, so it's handy that he has a different jersey on. I don't know in hurling, actually. That's really interesting, yeah?
Yes. I suppose if anyone does know, give us a shout and let us know.
Just leave it in the comments there on YouTube. Yeah, damn, I never ask a question before we come on. Made ourselves look bad there. But anyways, I suppose from the Clare side, look, I mentioned Alana Ryan there. I thought even when things were going tough, she really stood up and drove it on. And look, Emer Kelly was very impressive again at centre forward and has consistently been so. I think that kind of covers everything. Like the full back line was very, very good for Clare. But ultimately, I suppose they caved in under the pressure that they were on. Like you can only keep that up for so long when there's so much ball coming in. But they can hold their heads up high as well. They put up a really good performance. Sarah, you managed to catch a good bit of this before you headed up the road to Inniskeen. How do you feel about Cork now, having, I suppose, maybe been not overly impressed with them after the Wexford game, but haven't seen them twice since?
Still worried about their long striking. So I think when they meet a busy team who are as intense as them in terms of their defensive play, Kilkenny won't shy away from getting up in their face. And sometimes you need to be able to deliver, long ball into your inside line. And a couple of times Orla Cronin went yesterday to strike the ball as a pass, and she wasn't actually able to do it. She wasn't as comfortable. Yes, she's comfortable taking shots and she's comfortable on frees, but it just in the middle of the park yesterday, she was looking up. She wasn't actually finding the pass. So they will need to work on that for the next 2 weeks because they do need other options than running off the shoulder. As well, I don't think the Kilkenny cornerbacks are going to be too worried about Amy. She was nullified. She was nullified for 45 minutes yesterday, and then she broke out. So if the game is in the melting pot and they actually have that support and they're able to switch Grace onto her, or they're able to switch Colette onto her to quieten her for 10 to 15 minutes, there are options there that Clare
that old saying though, if you give me an axe and 10 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend the first 9 hours sharpening the axe. And that's what Amy O'Connor is like. There's only so much of that you can put up with before you just crumble. When he got sent off, she pulled her down with a rash challenge. Next thing she couldn't do anymore. Bang, floodgates open, game over.
I don't think any player that can mark her in the championship at the moment. I genuinely she will.
Apart from Davina Tobin, maybe. Interesting. Interesting. That will be some battle. We're a week ahead of ourselves here, but go on, Davy.
just on that, I don't know. I think that's a small bit harsh, Sarah. That even from the game last week's game against Galway was a very physical game. She came out that sore. She got a lot of hard hits. She was a player that was watched, and rightly so.
All right, Paddy.
But got too much attention.
But then going into this game, probably didn't train a whole pile on the Tuesday. Only getting into it on Thursday. It might take that half an hour, but on a top player, it'll come out in the end, and I think that's what she did produce in the end.
Okay, but she's
in
Clare who retired,
Further year form, but if anyone will fancy it, 100%. And if anyone will fancy,
I'm asking her to do it now in the semi and the final, and then we'll chat about Hurler of the Year. I'm not handing it over at quarter.
But if anyone will fancy their chances of shutting her down, it's Davina Tobin, who that's what she specialises in. That's what she does. That's what's on her business card. Shuts down corner forwards.
But you have to agree with me as well, though. Cork play in very small spaces, so the next 2 weeks they should really concentrate on firing ball into the forwards, into the corners, and trying opening up their play because they just play.
Yeah, it was an interesting point actually there because their long striking let them down a bit yesterday. I thought they did actually try it a few times yesterday, and I'd say if we I don't know, Sully, you're a good man for the old stats, but they hit a lot of ball into the keeper yesterday. I know they were playing against the wind, but it was the wrong choice. You have to, address what's in front of you, or, the weather conditions and stuff, and they didn't do that. Like, Orla Cronin hit a few short, Ashley Thompson hit 1 or 2 short. So definitely the long striking is a place. But are they allowed long strike? I'm not sure,
Mm-hmm. And I think the interesting matchup there will be whether Megan Farrell goes toe-to-toe with Orla Cronin. Like, Cork make you make a decision. Do you follow Orla Cronin and leave your defence wide open, or do you let her out into the middle of the field whereby you're instantly handing them the overlap that they want to play their hand-passing game? So that's the choice you have to make. So will Kilkenny back their 5 backs 5-on-5 with Cork and let Megan follow Orla, or will they sit back and hope that one of their forwards or midfielders, maybe Anna Farrell or someone like that, picks up Orla Cronin and works in the back? Yeah.
And Orla Cronin got player of the match. And Dalton became a side note. So I think
it's going to be very interesting.
That.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge, that'll be a tactical battle and a half. It's going to be class. But look, we'll save that for next week, or there's no one will be listening next week, right? So we move on to Tip against Waterford. Davy and Fiona, you gave Waterford the nod, okay? But before I throw you under the bus, so did Ursula and Rena on RTE. So obviously the lads are listening here, took our tips. There's a lesson in that there, Ursula and Rena. Don't make a show of yourselves on national television by going with what we say. Go back yourselves. I know. Sarah went for a tip, and so did Paddy Power. 2 people who are very rarely wrong, it turns out, Sarah and Paddy Power. So, look, but anyways, this was a really interesting game, Fiona. I suppose we thought at half-time Waterford had a really good chance. Like, Tip had played with a strong breeze. It hadn't quite clicked for them. They had a lot of wides. They were 2 points up. I think Fergal O'Brien would have been very happy at half-time. But I think ultimately it came down to, in my eyes, one team who completely backed themselves to go and do the job, and another team who were worried about what the other team were going to do. If you look at it, I suppose we had highlighted in the last couple of games, Kate Lynch and Lorraine Bray were the platform that made Waterford tick. They were bombing back forward from the back. Tipperary picked Clodagh McIntyre at wing forward, which I thought was definitely a dummy team. She hadn't featured at all. Obviously, Bill knew exactly what he was doing. A pacey youngster sat on top of Lorraine Bray and stopped her from going forward. Job done. Contributed very little from play, but job done. Tactical masterclass, superb. We thought he'd play Arena Friday there. Arena Friday's natural game is to drop deep and pick up ball, which allowed Lorraine Bray to sit and do whatever she wanted. They didn't do that. So Bill, hats off, top class. Now, Waterford then played Kate Lynch at wing forward. So now all of a sudden they've no one bombing back forward from wing back. And in the second half in particular, they couldn't get out of the tip half, couldn't get the ball into the forwards, and their whole game plan just fell apart. And I just wonder, Waterford started with their named half forward line as their full forward line, their named full forward line as their half forward line. And it's was the whole thing just a bit unsettling for them? Were they trying to be too clever? And you said it, Fiona, about Beth Carton. Tipperary had no man marking plan for Beth Carton, and I mean that in the best way possible. Wherever she went, they backed Tipperary defender to mark her. Like, she was on Mairead Evanston at one stage, she was on Mary Ryan at one stage, she was on Karen Kennedy at one stage. Tip didn't bat an eyelid, they stuck to their own game plan. That's fair to say, isn't it? You picked that out.
Yeah, I think they got no joy yesterday, and it was just a testament to Tip's belief in themselves. As you said, Bill just got his tactics perfectly right. They worried about Tip. They didn't worry one bit about Waterford. And as you said, I think Waterford just worried a bit too much about Tip. As I said, they went in 2 points up, Tip went in 2 points up at half time. And I think Waterford probably would have rested on their laurels at half time and kind of been like, okay, we've a game win behind us now. We're in control here. Beck will fire off a few goals and all will be grand and we'll be winning. And it just didn't work out that way, unfortunately. I think Annie Fitzgerald has had an unbelievable year, but just didn't get any joy yesterday. And then when you take a player like Lorraine Bray and you take Annie Fitzgerald out of any team, Lorraine was taken care of and Annie wasn't having a great day, you needed another Niamh Rockett and you needed another Beck Carton to help Niamh Rockett and Beck Carton, and they just didn't.
No, and Annie had one of those days where she always just felt like she was millimetres away from having an unbelievable game. Getting in all the right positions and spinning the player, and it just not happening. Just one of those days where it just didn't quite click for her. No, Kate Lynch had an excellent game at wing forward. You can't say that playing her wing forward affected her performance. It affected the balance of the Waterford team, I think. So
It's
Davy,
like quite change a winning setup. Like as you said, like it really just I'd say they spent about 10 minutes getting into grips with it themselves, even though they probably obviously had this practice and training and stuff, and they knew what they were going to do. But I suppose, even like Park and Creed, there's no one there yesterday, but like it's a huge stadium. Like nerves would have been there regardless of whether there was a crowd, a movie crowd, whatever that would be, like 500 people or whatever. So I think it was probably a really bad time to go changing up a winning team. The more I think about it, the more it doesn't really make any sense. And like obviously, if it had worked out, we'd be having a very different conversation. But like looking back at it now, it's why fix it if it's not broken? Like
exactly. And look, I suppose from a Tip point of view, like hats off to them. Like we said there, tactically they were superb. They brought a ferocious work rate and physicality to the game. Something I suppose we've only seen on rare occasions in camogie. I think if you look back to Galway in the All-Ireland final last year, I suppose Galway and Cork in the All-Ireland semi-final last year, and Tip yesterday, like they were just so up for it, so like backing each other up, getting 4 or 5 players into the rucks. We nearly had a row at one stage. We were hoping a row would break out. I'd never seen it before. Yeah, Miriam Campion was flying in. I think she fell over her own player in the end, but like they were well up for it. They were so well up for it. Like Karen Kennedy was player of the match in RTE. Difficult to argue with it, okay, fair enough. Like Karen was superb for us in UL for 4 years. She got the goal, got forward for the goal, like laid on 2 points as well. Cracking game. Mary Ryan was superb for Tipperary. Yeah. Like maybe only got on the ball. You did. And like I think she robbed Beth at one stage late in the first half with just textbook defending. It was just beautiful. But she was so assured. Like she was making runs going like off the shoulder to centre forward at one stage. Like Tip just looked like a team who are loving life at the moment, playing the tips of their toes. But for me, this game was about 3 players. Davey, you texted me and said, "Is Roisin Howard a carbon copy of Orla Cronin?" What a performance!
That's the thing. She played very similar to Orla, the way she was given the license to kind of play at centre forward but move where she wanted. She could drag the centre back anywhere she wanted, and it was her knowledge of awareness around her, that where the space was, where the ball was going to be, and she just commanded it. I counted possessions, and she had something like 17 or 18 possessions. So again, a very similar performance in terms of possessions to Orla. She was literally the link player from defence to attack. So everything that Tip did well was going through her. And what made it work was Tip looked for her. So it wasn't, Tip knew that she was the player to get the ball, and then the play would develop from there. And I suppose that's why Tip had a serious game plan, and that's why you need to know who your go-to players are. It's like in any club team, you have your 2 or 3, we say county players. They're the people you want to get on the ball the most. And with Tip,
Jesus.
I don't know if you agree with me there.
He's well trained, David.
Yeah. I was obviously talking too much there, telling me to shut up. But they knew who to get on the ball and who'd get the job done for her. The assists as well, everything went through her. She had a phenomenal amount of assists. But I suppose that's easy when you've caught inside to give the ball into that. They're making diagonal runs. But you have to admire her work rate. You talked about it already. We said the rucks, when she didn't have the ball, getting in, stopping the defence from coming out and delivering the ball into the forward. Like, again, a top-class performance.
Yeah, for me, Howard is just one of those players that goes completely under the radar. Like, she's as comfortable inside in a ruck as she is throwing the ball over her shoulder, onto someone running off the shoulder. Just class. Caught Cavan, as you mentioned there, Dave. He had 13 possessions, 2 points from play, one outrageous one from just on the sideline to 65.
Tony Kelly.
Work rate. But really, I thought, like, the standout player for me in that game was Niamh Tracy. Like, she just looked like she was having one of those days whereby she was just better than everybody else. It was just the biggest kid in the playground. Wherever she goes, she's getting the ball, that's it. She had 17 possessions for Tipperary, covered every blade of grass. Like, she's been one of the best players, top 3 players in the Ashburn Cup for the last 3 or 4 years. And I just felt that had never really properly produced it for Tipperary. I think they struggled where they played. They've tried their wing back, centre forward, full forward. They've tried it everywhere. Midfield dominated, absolutely dominated. And if Tipperary put Ashley Maloney in beside her in midfield for a semi-final, that's some engine. You'd have Maloney and Tracy against Donoghue and Kilkenny, and Jesus, that would be unbelievable. But for me, like, those three players had 47 possessions in an hour. Those three players alone. You know, it was class. It was class. For me, Niamh Tracy was just man of the match. Boy, head and shoulders. That's no offence to Karen. Karen won't take any offence to that. Like, Niamh Tracy was class. There was two outstanding pieces of skill in this game as well. Rockets between the legs pass was class. It looked like a blatant throw from the stand, but watching it back again this morning, it was deadly. And Fiona, you were salivating at the Nicole Walsh point in the second half off the stick, or the Niamh Ryan, as you call it.
Niamh Ryan, yeah. And great again, like, we're doing it every week, but hats off to the streaming services and to RTE for showing that, because those are pieces of skill that never would have been seen, and it just shows that, like, you know, the girls have the skill, same amount of skill as the lads, like, you know, and little snippets of that should be going viral, like, and I think they're relatively going viral, so it's great. There was also an unreal save. I don't know, was that shown anywhere?
Oh yes, yeah.
And that could have been a game changer, because, like, we all know that Beth Carton could be a game changer. Beth had scored that goal, like, she's like some rocket of a shot, like, top right corner, and we were wondering why he's on his lattering goals. You know, like, because I suppose Bourke has been such a solid goalkeeper for a Tip for years, and by God, we saw why. Like, it was such an unbelievable save, and again, could have been, like, there was was it 2 or 3 minutes left at that stage with injury time and stuff. Beth can do anything in 2 or 3 minutes, and if that
is crucial. It was a crucial save. It was a great save. Great save. There was clips of it. I think Tip Camogie had clips of it going around on Twitter. It was just absolutely superb reaction save. Like, we all know it's a luxury to have a good goalkeeper in Camogie. Like, Tip have 2 class goalies now, so, like, that's a real luxury to have. As well, I suppose, look, from an all-star point of view then, Fiona, look, we've listed Mary Ryan there, Karen Kennedy, Niamh Tracy, Cavan, Roisin Howard on the Tip side. And for me, Kate Lynch was the one who kind of carried the battle for Waterford. I suppose a real candidate for the Young Player of the Year with consistent performances. Was there anyone else you'd add to that, or have we pretty much?
I would actually put on Lee Rocket again. I think she just needed more support yesterday. She had 1 or 2 she's some pair of hands and 1 or 2 unbelievable catches. There was a great score there, puck out straight from Brianna, Lee Rocket over the bar, like, you know, in Parky Creek, like, which is a big pitch, you know, so that was really an excellent score, but she just needed more support. She ended up going too deep because she wanted to get on the ball, and then, you know, there was no one inside for her.
And you know what, in fairness, it says a lot about how unbelievable she has been all year that I kind of left her out there nearly to talk. Like, she was really good. She set her own kind of standards now as to how good we expect her to be as well. So look, Tipper into the semi-final for the 3rd year in a row. So I think, you know, people would often talk, you know, you have your big 3, which I know a lot of people don't like. Who's the 4th team? I think it's safe to say Tipperary have firmly established themselves as the 4th team now. But the question is, can they grasp the opportunity they have and drive on and achieve something really big? We'll talk about the preview for the semi-finals next week. We'll move on to the Nancy Murray Cup. Cavan versus Tyrone, the first silverware of the year being handed out in Inniskeen. Sarah, you were up there with your better half as well, dragging him along to his first ever Tyrone Camogie game. Another Camogie title for the Grevels. Like, is there any stopping them at all? Johnny's brother is the Cavan manager. He was on the Westmeath management team as well last year. Another serious achievement for him.
So they won it 2-14 to 1-3. The results running up to it suggested that they would be too much for Tyrone realistically, but the game was played on a super pitch, can't fault pitch, but it was played in a gale, and both teams obviously struggled with the gale in either half, and Tyrone probably stayed in the game for longer as a result. So at half time it was 2-4 to 1-1, but Cavan were then obviously going with the gale for the second half and ended up winning by 2-14 to 1-3. So, you know, they put on 10 points in that second half. Cavan are backbone by Crossralock with like 9 players from the Crossralock team across the team, and you had their half back line is a complete Crossralock unit. And then I suppose the big thing for them was they had 6 different scorers, and all of their 6 forwards were on the scoreboard over the course of the game. Hannah Boylan got 2 goals. Sinead McKenna got 3 points. Orla Smith was player of the match. Shanice Fitzsimons, Roisin Keefe, Ciara Fitzpatrick. Like, this was your starting 6 forwards. So pretty dream game for those 6 forwards to all get on the scoreboard and be so effective. Outside of that, I suppose for Tyrone, Una McCann was in goal for them, and she scored 2. She still made 2 absolutely brilliant saves. Like, they both times they were odds on goals, and she managed to get a stick and get one over the bar and put one out for a 45. 2 players for them that really stood out. They had a player, Regan Fay, wearing number 10, and I swear to God, she ran the length and breadth of the pitch, and she was so effective every time she got on the ball. And their midfielder, Casey Gallagher, both of the girls are from Eglish, and just really, really nice camogie players who just love to get up and down the field as much as they can, and, you know, able to win the ball in the air, able to win the ball on the ground, able to strike the ball 40, 50 yards, and as I said, in a gale. So Tyrone, while disappointed, you know, there was a lot of positives to the game. It was a really enjoyable game, but Cavan just had too much for them.
I suppose, like, up to a couple of years ago, I remember when Limerick were in Division 3 in the Camogie Fiona with the second team, they would have regularly gone up to Tyrone and played them when Cavan didn't even have a team. So this is kind of an emergence of a new force at that level. Without jumping ahead of ourselves, I suppose we know the Premier Junior semi-finals are on next week. I suppose I have 2 questions about this, Sarah. One, is it right that you win your competition and move up a level and participate in another competition? Would it be better for the Cavan morale if they were able to just throw the trophy up on the sideboard and regroup in January, you know, with a kind of a renewed impetus for next year? That's my first question, I suppose. My second question is, have they got a chance next week against Roscommon, or will the step up from Nancy Murray level to Premier Junior level be just a little bit too much for them?
First off, I think the season's been so short, the girls won't mind having another week at it. You know, if you were talking about a competition that started in February and they were still going in November, yeah, it's unfair, but not with the fact that the teams are only back since 14th September. So I think they'll feel fresh. As I said, those 6 forwards, you know, there's nothing like getting, you know, 14 points on the board and wanting to go out and do it all again. Roscommon's results haven't been great. So I think Cavan, with the fact that they have that momentum behind them, they've played Louth, Tyrone, and Tyrone now again, and they've won all of the games. They're unbeaten. Yeah, I think they have a shout. I think they have a real shout.
The winning momentum is a great thing. If Jimmy is anything like Johnny, they'll have their homework done in Roscommon. They'll certainly be prepared. Roscommon are backbone, the lock boy at league in 4 roads, aren't they? As you said, Cavan have a lot of across the lock players, so it'll nearly come down to kind of a junior club game, nearly, in no disrespect, but that's almost what it is. I suppose you would give any club a chance on any given day at that level, so it'll be very interesting to see it. For Tyrone, I suppose, quite difficult to take a beating like that and then have to step up and play Armagh, who would be, I suppose, traditionally seen as one of the stronger Premier Junior teams.
Yeah, I think if the game had been closer, Tyrone would have more confidence. But realistically, Tyrone only had 3 scorers yesterday, and you know they were just that bit back. While they tried valiantly, a final is a different kettle of fish to other games. Armagh's a step too far for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But well done to Cavan. It's great. I think it's only maybe their second or third year actually putting out a team at any level. So to win a championship is superb. Do they get promoted to the Premier Junior next year, or maybe, who knows?
I don't think there's any promotion at all, is there?
No.
I didn't think there was any.
No.
I think we were talking about that with Wexford as well, with the National League this year, and them playing Division 2. I think.
Well, they're promoted to the Premier Junior for next weekend. Well, and actually, okay, this might sound absolutely bananas, right? But if Cavan went on and won the Premier Junior, would they be up intermediate next year?
No promotion. There isn't any. Because it's not fair. So there wasn't any anyway, even when Limerick were still in it. But I remember talking to one of the girls, Rebecca Noonan from our club, about it. Sure, there was going to be no Croke Park this year, no promotion. Do you remember we were talking about in podcast 4? They were playing for absolutely nothing, and now teams like Cavan or Cavan are probably going to get to, well, they're playing Roscommon, but sure, they haven't come across Limerick second team, or they haven't come across other second teams out there because they've all been taking shambles.
Yeah,
it's great for them. It's great they're still playing, don't get me wrong, but they're not playing the best teams either. Do you know what I mean? Or
But it's not going to bring them on sitting in Nancy Murray up next year.
Exactly.
So to play Louth and Tyrone again, so they have to go somewhere. Like you have to be realistic about that as well. So
we make a new cup, the Women's Hurling Cup. It's for when you're a small bit too good for junior B. You're not quite good enough for Premier Junior. Okay, moving swiftly on before we get any more hate tweets from the Northern into the county or the country. The intermediate quarterfinals were both very interesting today. A very strong second half from Meath with the usual suspects, Jane Dolan and Aoife Minogue contributing heavily there for them. They lost last week, so I suppose they're happy to get up and running. Before the competition started, like Meath are always going to be one of the favourites. They're not that long down from senior, not that long down from Division 1. So again, Sarah, I suppose, getting a bit of momentum going, getting a win, they'll be a threat next weekend as well.
Yes, but I think Down have more momentum. Like, I was surprised that Meath obviously lost last week, and I actually didn't anticipate them to turn it around this week so quickly. I was looking at, obviously, the Derry team. Karen Keelte is the class act always and ever, and maybe it was just that, like, we had played Derry a couple of times over the years when I was involved with Dublin, and they have a lovely style of hurling, but they don't have enough players. So I think Meath, as you said, the momentum they had from Division 1 was probably the difference for them, but it won't be enough against Down.
Yeah, no, Down are a really, really slick outfit, I suppose, have been quite close. They were in the final 2 years ago. I think one of the Westmeath backroom team said he felt that they maybe took their eye off the ball against Westmeath in the semi-final last year, maybe felt that they were already in Croke Park. So they've been knocking on the door for the last couple of years. So, and look, obviously any team that has Niamh Mallon in it is always going to have a chance. Like, she is like top class. Really interesting game in the rag then that you had more of an eye on, I suppose. After 45 minutes, Laois only had one score on the board. Kerry were in complete and utter control of this game. Ultimately, I suppose the fact that Kerry had a really tough extra time game last weekend, did it catch up with them in the end, or was it a case that once Laois got going, they were just a better side at the end of the day?
The rag was a bog, right? So the ball was literally just landing, and then it was like feet on top of the ball, and it wasn't even bouncing. That's how bad it was. So it definitely suited Laois in terms of their physicality. Like, they were tall girls, and as the game went on, their handling got better, their striking got better. It actually suited them that the game went on for 70 minutes, because for the first 40 they weren't at the races at all. Like, as you said, they had a goal up to 40 minutes. Their captain Sarah Cuddy had scored a goal against the run of play. There was nothing spectacular about Laois to that point, and then I don't know how Kerry kind of just lost a grip so badly, but one of the key things, I suppose, Clodagh Tynan and Amy Collier in the half back line for Laois really got on top, and they started delivering lots and lots of ball, and Patrice Diggin just went out of the game. I think they brought a sub on, and I'm disappointed I can't remember her name, but she absolutely nullified Patrice in the last 20 minutes and basically wouldn't let her near the ball, wouldn't let her on the ball. And then Cueva Spillane for Kerry was doing a lot of work, but because she wasn't getting the supply, she kind of was nullified as well. And then I suppose the last thing was Sarah Cray for Laois was dropped back from corner forward to play kind of in the backs for Laois when they got on top, and like 2 or 3 points in a game that's an absolute bog is a great I suppose support for any team. So they just bedded in. Now two of Clodagh Tynan's points came from the middle of the park. Now, I know the rag isn't the biggest pitch in the world, but still, on a day like today, coming from wing back to score those was huge for Laois. So, like, they scored They scored 10 points between the 46th minute, so just after the second water break.
Yeah.
To the end of.
So for about 35 minutes, they hit 10 points.
Yeah. Like,
they opened up.
It's an incredible turnaround for Laois. Kerry will be absolutely kicking themselves because they looked home and hosed. Like, coming into the second, I suppose, coming out of the last water break, it didn't look like they were near it at all. And actually, Laois scored their last 2 points in the 57th minute and the 60th minute to draw level. So Kerry couldn't even hold them out for the last 4 minutes.
Yeah, they'd be very disappointed, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like for them, if they had held on today to beat Carlow, who I suppose were established first team in intermediate, and beat Laois, who were an established first team intermediate, when you're just up out of Premier Junior, would have been serious progress for them. I suppose in a couple of weeks when they regroup and start thinking about the National League for next year, they'll still be reasonably happy with it. They've established themselves now as a solid intermediate side, and they're in Division 2 of the league as well, so it's serious progress.
But they'll hate to have lost the way they lost.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt
Yeah.
for the whole winter, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, they'll have no choice. They won't be allowed hurt because they have to go and play in the club championship, so they probably won't start training at all. Clan Morris beat Bruff in the club championship, didn't they? So I think they have a Munster intermediate or Munster junior final to look forward to in February, so they'll probably take a couple of weeks off and go back at it again. So that leaves the intermediate semi-finals next week then. Antrim, who were my tip from the very start, against Laois, and Down against Meath. I suppose what we're looking at here, or from what we've spoken about and what we've seen so far, we could be very well looking at an Antrim Down final here, which would be interesting.
Yeah, well, it's the second tier and you've got two northern teams in it. And, I suppose we've always talked about Schlockneil being so dominant and Lochiel being so dominant in the north, but it's not necessarily showing in the All-Ireland phase. But, it's nice to see then if the intermediate does become a northern affair, that kind of work is showing through at inter-county level. Yeah,
no, definitely. I know I mentioned before, Antrim have two guys over them that would have managed Antrim hurlers in the past when they were winning the Division 2, which was the Christy Ring at the time, is the Joe McDonough now, and playing in the Lee McCarthy. So they had that experience. Down have Paul Dunn with them. They also have Owen Brisland, the former Tipperary hurler, involved with them as well. So they're both taking it really seriously. There's a real, I suppose, upsurge in fortunes in Ulster hurling at the moment, across the camogie and the hurling. Antrim are obviously flying the Joe McDonough, their favourites to get promoted to Lee McCarthy. Down beat Offaly yesterday in the Christy Ring. They've been promoted to the Joe McDonough for next year. And you've Antrim and Down in the semi-final intermediate camogie. So, I suppose,
Donegal beat Tyrone in the hurling.
Donegal hammered Tyrone in the hurling as well. They did, with a Tyrone lad doing all the damage for him by all accounts as well. But so look, winning breeds confidence, and I suppose the Ulster people are a real tight hurling community, so they'll all take confidence off each other. Obviously, if Antrim and Down meet in the final, that gets hard. But yeah, we'll have to get into that. But so look, very quickly, the fixtures for next weekend are in the intermediate semi-finals. It's Antrim against Laois, Down against Meath, and in the Premier Junior, it's Armagh against Tyrone and Roscommon against Cavan. I suppose, Sarah, you've probably seen more of the intermediate and Premier Junior Nancy Murray games than any of the rest of us, so I'm going to leave all the predictions up to you this week, so no pressure. Yeah. So, Antrim against Laois in the intermediate.
Antrim.
Down against Meath.
Down.
Armagh against Tyrone.
Armagh.
Oh, Aaron won't like that. Do not give him an old
sympathy vote.
A branch of hope, no.
No, I've given that to Dublin, and who else did I give it to? Got consequences now by being sound, so not being sound.
And then Roscommon against our Nancy Murray Cup champions, Cavan.
I'm going with Cavan. I really like them last day. Yeah.
Oh, so we'll be looking at a final in Antrim and Down the intermediate, and Armagh Cavan in the Premier Junior. If Jimmy Greville manages to pull off winning the Nancy Murray and the Premier Junior the same year, hats off.
What did I say? 6 forwards on the scoreboard for Cavan.
Very impressive.
Yeah,
very impressive. But guys, that's brilliant. Look, next week we'll have a review of the intermediate and junior semi-finals. We'll have a preview of the big senior semi-finals, and we'll also have an update of who's in and who's not in our all-star team as it stands before the semi-finals as well. So that'll be something to look forward to. Thanks very much for your time. Thanks to everyone who's listening. Remember to like, subscribe, hit all those buttons, and